full-time MBA alumni from the class of 2020. So thank you for joining the session. I'm also joined by my colleague Chris Healy today, as well as the 4 alums that you can also see, and we'll get round to introducing ourselves, or they will introduce themselves in a few seconds. So we'll just wait a few seconds for a few more people to join the room. Hopefully by now a few people are joining. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, it's a good number of us in the session now. So just to explain the housekeeping, you are all on mute and your video is off for, to minimize disruption, but we do want it to be an interactive and engaging session. So please do type your questions into the Q&A box. I'm sure you're very familiar with how Zoom webinar works. So yeah, we will then put your questions to the 4 alumni. Also, again, after a bit of housekeeping in terms of this breakdown of the session, we'll have about 45 minutes with Q&A with the alums. And then at the end of the session, end of the 45 minutes, myself and Chris and my colleague Katerina, who's also online, will stay around and answer more of your kind of general questions to do with admissions, the program, next steps, those kind of things. So yeah, after about 45 minutes, the alum will say thank you and goodbye to the alums, and we will stay online for the next 15 minutes or so. So yeah, without further ado, I think I'll hand it over to Chris at this point. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ant. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who's joining us. I was looking at the registration list yesterday, and I see we literally have people from all over the world attending today's webinar, which also is a good representation of what our full-time MBA class looks like. If I think about the current class, who started with us back in September. We've got students from 32 different countries in that class, out of a class of 112 students. So quick introduction to myself. So my name is Chris Healy. I'm responsible for recruitment and marketing across our suite of MBA programs. So that consists of our professional MBAs, such as our Manchester Global MBA, our Kelly Manchester MBA, our Global Executive MBA, but also the flagship program at Alliance Manchester Business School, which is our full-time MBA program. Delighted to be joined by 4 recent alumni here today who will be able to share their experiences with you. I was just saying to the guys before we went live that although we do a series of events when it might be someone like myself who'll give a program presentation, it might be the MBA director giving an overview of the school. We have academics giving taster lectures on things such as negotiations, competitive strategy, etc. But I don't think there's any of our events that are more popular than when we have our students or alumni join us, because although yes, people like myself will give you that factual information, people like our students and alumni will give a real lived experience of their time on the MBA program. So without further ado, I'm going to ask the group to introduce themselves. So what we're looking for here, guys, is just a quick who you are, where you're from, what did you do before the MBA, maybe which clients you worked with whilst you were on the MBA, and what you do now. So we'll start in the order that I see you, which is Kathy, Ritwick, Meredith, and Matthias, please.
Yep. Hi everyone. I'm Kathy. I am from Manchester and still in Manchester. I grew up here but spent some time away down in London and overseas, so kind of came back for the MBA program, came home. Before the MBA, I worked as a financial accountant, so I did audit and then worked within the finance department of different companies. On the MBA, I worked with probably my biggest client was a company called TalkTalk. So for those that aren't familiar, it's a UK-based broadband and telecoms provider. Also with another client called Collective Crunch, who do AI in the forest industry. So completely new kind of area, something I've not come across before. What I do now, so I work for North Edge, who are a private equity firm based in Manchester, and I work as their head of ESG, which stands for Environmental, Social and Governance.
Thank you, Katie. So I'm Ritwick, and I'm from India, currently based in Berlin. Prior to my MBA, I used to work in HSBC in the credit risk space. And as far as my projects are concerned, for the not-for-profit project, I worked with Music Action International, which works with refugees. And for the commercial business project, I worked with Cisco on autonomous driving vehicles. And for the finally, the bigger one, the international business project, I worked with the National Graphene Institute and the Graphene Engineering Innovation Center in Manchester. And currently I'm working in Klarna in the analytics space, mainly concerned with the financial crime area. So developing models and stuff like that to fight financial crime and identify the criminals from making purchases. And Klarna, maybe you already know, but Klarna is one of the bigger players in the buy now, pay later market. And yeah, that's pretty much about me. So off to you, Meredith.
Thanks, Ritwick. I'm Meredith. I'm from Toronto, Canada, originally, although I stayed in Manchester, so I'm Manchester-based now. Before the MBA, I worked in the nonprofit sector. So I was leading an organization in Canada called Childhood Cancer Canada Foundation. And then during the MBA, my clients were a nonprofit called Henshaws for the NFP project, which with them, we worked to develop an accreditation scheme that would make businesses more friendly for people with disabilities, while also providing sustainable revenue for the organization. And then I worked with an infrastructure company for a market analysis. And then my final project was actually for the University Startup Center. In that project, we were able to travel to the US and meet with a bunch of entrepreneurs, program leads, and investors to understand what made their centers successful and inform the growth strategy here. I currently work for an accelerator called Hatch Enterprise. We provide business support and accelerator programs for socially focused businesses, and we work with underrepresented entrepreneurs, particularly in terms of race and gender, and those without a traditional business background. I head up their community program there.
Thank you, Meredith. I'm Matias. I'm from Chile, South America. I am a biochemist, and I used to work in marketing at Pfizer in Chile. That was before the MBA, and during the MBA, I came to UK. I currently live in Cambridge. I had three of the projects that I work on the nonprofit sector. We work with Turning Point. It's a charity that focuses on many things, but we are focusing particularly with drug and alcohol misuse clients. Then the commercial business project, we work with the Property Alliance Group. It's a Manchester-based property investment group. And in the international project, we work with Gerdau. Gerdau, it's the biggest steel manufacturer in Brazil. And we actually research around the metal 3D printing market. Currently, I'm in Cambridge, as I said before. I'm working in a healthcare consulting company that specializes in drug access and health technology assessment here in UK and Europe.
That's great. Thank you very much for those introductions. So to get started, and maybe to set the scene, how I like to speak with prospective MBA students is to, is to try and help them, because selecting an MBA, there's so many choices available. Sometimes people say, I have to choose the right business school. And I often think to myself, well, do you know what? Selecting a world-class business school, for example, is fairly easy. And the reason I say selecting a world-class business school is fairly easy is because there's so many really truly elite business schools, whether we're talking about North America, whether we're looking at Asia, whether we're looking at mainland Europe to the UK. And on the UK, I'd say there's a minimum of 5 world-class business schools in the UK. And if you were to get into a debate, then I'd say you could probably get that number to maybe about 10 world-class business schools just in the UK alone. Of course, Alliance Manchester Business School would be in the first bracket of the top 5. But I'm just interested, and I'm gonna focus here on our 3 international alumni in Meredith, Matthias, and Ritwick. You come from different parts of the world. You decided you wanted to undertake an MBA, and I guess not to be too corny, but the world was your oyster, if you will, in terms of the options available to you. So maybe an insight from the 3 of you as to why you chose to come on to the Manchester MBA, given the wealth of choices that were in front of you. And maybe we'll start in North America with Meredith. Over to you.
Sure. So full disclosure, I did already have a connection to the UK. My partner is British and I'd lived in London previously for a couple of years. So I had already kind of decided that I wanted to do it somewhere in the UK, but I wasn't sure where. And what stood apart for me for Manchester was the consultancies. I wanted to do an MBA, but I didn't want it to be all studying. I really wanted that kind of practical component. And for me, transitioning from the nonprofit sector, this gave me a great opportunity to be able to have exposure to different areas and work on some strategy projects.
Over to you, Matthias.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Thank you, Meredith, again. So for me, it's interesting. I had if you wish, I had a very pragmatic approach. So in my case, the US was totally out because of the prices of the programs, and therefore Europe, for 2 reasons: prices, Europe, and also the fact that I have a European passport. So for me, it was easier if I wanted to continue working afterwards. Then I actually focused on the top tier schools that I actually found a magazine, MBA magazine, dividing the top tier schools into like employability and academics, and I focused on the tier 1, like the ones who were high employability and high academics. Within this group, I think shortly there were like 10 European schools, and of course, again, the price of the cost of the program had something to do, and I was like, okay, not just the program itself, to be honest, it's the program and the life. I mean, if I would have lived 2 years in London, I mean, imagine the amount of debt I will be in right now. So that's how I came out into like, I reduced into 2. And then of course, within those 2, the consultancy project were really something that popped out in Manchester. And also the fact that Manchester had like quite a few options for partial scholarships. So that's what closed the deal for me.
Excellent. Over to you, Ritwick.
All right. So as Meredith mentioned, it was mainly the program. So I didn't want something very academically intensive one. The Manchester MBA is quite practical in approach, and the academic part is not too heavy. So that really made up the decision for me. And of course, the other things was analyzing the risk versus reward thing. So I was priced out of the US market, you can say, and there was additional risk there as well due to the immigration policies and other bits. So UK seemed like a fair enough place to start or do the MBA. And another factor for me was my industry of choice. So I wanted to head into or stay in the financial industry itself, and UK is one of the best places to do that. And with the growing startup ecosystem that's there in UK or in Europe in general around the financial services industry. So that provided me with a good market to target. So yeah, these I would say were the main drivers for me.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, interesting point by Matthias and Ritwick there about the cost of business education in North America. Of course, you know, Meredith will be well aware of that, being based in Toronto, and you know, something we often hear from students. You know, it's I think when you look at the value for money, and this is not just about Manchester, this is I think about a number of schools in the UK and Europe, definitely is a significant price difference. Kathy, I'm going to go over to you now, and by all means add to the first question if you want to do so. But I'm you know, a believer, therefore, if there's so many world-class business schools, then the key is to look at the MBA program itself and to really look at that structure, not to just go, okay, Manchester is ranked higher than, I don't know, Manchester's ranked higher than Imperial, therefore I go to Manchester. I don't believe in that. If Imperial's program looks better for your professional needs, then that might well be a better program than ours. But the key point I'm a believer in is the program structure has to work for you as an individual. So Kathy, perhaps maybe you can share some insights with the audience as to, you know, what the Manchester MBA looks like, or what a typical week can look like on the Manchester MBA program.
There probably is no typical week, but I'll try and summarize it. So I was part of the class that was kind of interrupted, is probably the best way, with COVID. So kind of had 6 months typical that I'm sure the students will now have going forward, and then 6 months, about 9 months of kind of more virtual learning. So I think if I focus on kind of in person, because I think, Chris, that's kind of, you know, what we're all back to now and stuff. So it was busy, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of different things going on, either from the careers service or from lectures or from tutors or group work. But also all the social stuff was great. So the new, well, it's still relatively new, the new business school building that's kind of behind us all on our screens is amazing. You've got this amazing common room, so it's kind of lunch with all your friends. You've got great sports facilities local, so in terms of getting involved with stuff that isn't just academic. So I joined our ladies football team, and it was definitely one of the highlights coming away from the MBA. So it's a typical week is kind of, yes, you're busy with different bits of work you've got to do for the program, but also you're given the time and the freedom to pursue other things that you're interested as well. So if that is kind of more of the social side, if it is, you know, working with the Entrepreneurs Centre at the business school, if it is, you know, really focused, depending on the time that you're depending on what stage you're through your MBA, you know, focusing on kind of careers or internships, etc. So there was always a lot going on. You're given loads of choice of what you want to get kind of stuck in as well, and that freedom and that trust as well to kind of, you know, focus on what you want to focus on. I think the other thing I'd probably add, just building on what the guys said for the first question, you know, like I said, I'm from Manchester, so obviously I'm quite passionate about the city, but I do genuinely think it's a great place to live as a student. You're not, you know, with London schools, you know, I've lived in London, I've experienced it, rents are sky high, you know, tubes are, I hate the tube, but your friends or your classmates might be an hour away from you. Well, in Manchester, that just doesn't happen. Like, everyone's so local, you know, everyone walks to the business school, you know, different bits of socials and stuff. Like it has that campus feel, especially with the business school, like the full-time MBAs, we get our own kind of dedicated sections, our own working rooms, working places. I think we even had a computer room as well. So just that kind of social element. And you know, at the end of the day, everyone's coming and spending 2 years in a completely new place, and you know, you want to enjoy your time there and feel like you could settle there if you wanted to.
That's great. Thank you very much, Kathy. And you know, going back there to the program and the narrative I was using a few moments ago, you know, when you look at MBA programs, when Harvard invented the MBA program back in the day, it was very much a general management qualification, and where the concept was to look at things such as your core business disciplines, things like accounting, economics, marketing, strategy, operations, you know, the fundamentals in business, and basically the cornerstone of all MBA programs, or what should be the cornerstone of all MBA programs still to today. When we look at business schools across the world, or the you know, I heard Matthias mention the word top tier schools earlier, and when you do look at the top tier schools, you tend to find they still have that general management focus. They don't do MBAs in, you know, MBA in finance or MBA in marketing, or even, you know, much niche MBAs than that. And I always think to candidates, you know, if all MBA programs are setting out to be teaching you those core business disciplines, how do you go about selecting an MBA program? And it was interesting how both Meredith and Matthias specifically said the word consultancy projects in there as one of their key reasons. And you know, I would go as far to say it is the you know, the key thing that makes the Manchester MBA program stand out. It's not it doesn't mean to say that makes our program better than other programs, but I think what it does do is it gives people, if you're looking for an MBA program that will give you industry experience, an opportunity to put your learning into practice, then of course that's what we've done with our consultancy projects. So I think Meredith, I'm gonna go over to you on this one. You gave in your introduction a snippet of the companies who you worked with your consultancies on, but maybe give the audience maybe a bit more insight on, maybe bring some of those projects into life a bit more, so you know, people will see on a brochure, okay, they've got 3 consultancy projects, they say it's live, they say they've got 900 hours of client-facing time, more than any other business school in the world. Although that is a fact, it doesn't necessarily, what does that mean to someone who's sat at home now researching MBA programs? And maybe you can try and bring that maybe a bit more into life, please.
Definitely. So for each of the consultancy projects, you work in a group of about 5 students. The first 2 projects, you have an assigned group, which is great because you get to work with different people that you may not have necessarily paired up with. And then in the 3rd project, you choose your team once you know the cohort better. The first 2 projects are also assigned to you, or sorry, the first project is assigned to you, but for the second 2 consultancies, you're able to bid for them. So I wanted to point that out just because it really provides an opportunity for you to direct like your learning and your consultancy experience towards industries or topics that are of interest to you. You kind of prepare like a brief proposal for the companies that you'd like to work with. You go in and you pitch to them, and then they decide which groups they'd like to work with. Then the duration of each of the consultancies is different, but essentially you'll have an initial meeting with your client to understand a bit more about their needs. Then you'll go away as a team and do some preliminary research and create a structure for the project that you're going to execute over the duration of the consultancy. Then you have, you'll usually have a contact within the company that you meet with maybe on a weekly basis, and you have a supervisor from within the university that has consultancy experience that can help guide the group and ensure that you're kind of on track, especially for your first one or two. Then you have a midpoint presentation where you share with them everything that you've done to date and your proposal, like your kind of plan to ensure that you get to the recommendations and the output they were looking for, and a final presentation where you share what you found. All of the projects are so varied. Like I said, I worked for a nonprofit, an infrastructure company, and then in the startup space. So if you consciously approach these consultancies with the aim to expand your CV and like learn about new areas of business, then you can have quite a varied experience there. I just love to open it up to anybody else if you think there's something I've missed or something it would be good to add in terms of the consultancies. Awesome.
So I think one of the interesting points you made there, Meredith, and I'll go over to Ritwick on this one, was you spoke about the outcomes. So these really are, real clients projects. These companies are coming to us with specific briefs. They're not, I sometimes use the term, these are not just Mickey Mouse projects with companies who we've just got fantastic relationships with. These companies on the international business consultancy project are paying a significant fee. They're allocating budgets for you. Ritwick, anything that you can maybe share with regards to outcomes and maybe the pressure, perhaps, to deliver those outcomes to your clients?
Yeah, exactly. So I can give an example. So my commercial business project was with Cisco, and basically the project revolved around their investment in the autonomous vehicle testing space. So that was a multi-million-dollar investment from their side, and they wanted us to build a business case on how to monetize that investment, because at that point of time, they were just working with the government and building it, but they didn't know how to monetize it. So this was, even though we were not directly in contact with the senior management, but this was directly something that would influence the decisions made at the higher level of the company. And of course, there was pressure from our immediate contact within the company because of the short period of time for the project, and also because of the lack of, or you can say that the UK market may not have been very much mature in that space at that point of time. So this put additional pressure on us to try and convince the client to let us travel to other locations. For example, we traveled to Europe for the commercial business project to gain additional insights, and that initially convincing, and then finally having that on our mind that we need to deliver value because we have convinced these people to spend money on getting additional information on this topic, and ultimately delivering a valuable solution or a recommendation which they can use to monetize their investment was something that was always on the back of our mind, and we were ably helped by the supervisor in this case. So yeah, in short, this was, it's true that these are real businesses and they have real impacts, these projects. And it was also validated by the fact that we were later, after the project was over, a couple of months later, we were invited to present the whole project in front of the board. So that was an interesting validation from the actual business impacts of this project's point of view.
Excellent insights. And what Ritwick has given you there is an insight into one of our clients, which of course is that's a Cisco, huge global organization. But then on our commercial business consultancy, we often work with a number of startups, a number of SMEs. Yes, sometimes there of course are some global organizations on the commercial business project as well. I also think, and Kathy, I'm going to go to you on this. The fact that we have these 3 live consultancy projects, it can sometimes give students an opportunity or maybe exposure to different industries that they may not necessarily already have that background in. I'm just wondering, did that apply to you? Did you get exposure to new industries, or did you stay very similar to from the industry that you came into the MBA from?
No, 100%. I got exposure to new industries directly from those projects. So to give the example that's the most relevant to the job I do now, and I would say, very much helped me get the job I'm in now, was the project I mentioned with Talk. So it was all around net zero, them wanting to understand where they were at the moment in terms of kind of carbon emissions and initiatives that they'd done, and what the next step on kind of their sustainability journey looked. And building on what Ritwick said, it was very relevant to the business. And actually, one of the people on my team went and then did an internship over the summer. So kind of, that's how relevant it was to the business, that kind of individual went and stayed with them for an extra few months. So kind of, building on what the others said, like, I had an accounting finance background. I knew I didn't want to kind of stay in that background. I didn't know what I wanted to do, very much just kind of was like, I'll kind of see what I'm exposed to and what I'm interested in, and that element of being able to pick the projects and pick the team, and kind of almost, yes, you would learn from the clients, but you'd also learn from those individuals in the teams. So they make a point of mixing up. So in the first two projects, when you're assigned a team, the school makes a point of making sure those teams are really diverse, so different backgrounds, different countries. So you learn from the clients, and you learn from the project you're actually doing, and obviously all the academics that you learn in as well, but you very much learn from each other. So there was an element of, I was kind of the token finance person and would get bits of financial modeling to do, but also I could put my hands up and say, actually guys, this isn't what I want to learn. I want to learn marketing or strategy, or this, I want to develop my presentation skills, for example. So you can offer your skills, and there was someone else on my team they wanted to learn a bit more about finance, so I can support them, they can support me. So it's very much that kind of collaborative group work, that where you learn from all different angles. And it's not all shiny and roses. I'm not going to say here, and it was all super, everyone was always on the same page, etc. But it gives you that experience for life, and what the working world is like afterwards. You're never going to get the perfect team and you all agree all 100% of the time. So it very much just does give you that practical experience. And yeah, like I said, I've almost kind of gone off a tangent, but coming back to what I said, is that specific project with Talk 100% was used in my interview for the job I'm in now. And this says, this gives me credibility in this space. This is where I want to move into. So yeah, huge learning experience that I could take forward.
Excellent, thank you. Matthias, I'm going to come to you next, more about for you to give an insight to basically what the class looked like. But I'm just going to make one final, and by all means, if there's anything you want to add on the consultancies, please feel free to do so. But a final word from me in terms of what we've heard so far from Meredith, Kathy, and Ritwick about our consultancy projects is, I think they've given you there a real insight into the exposure you get to different types of organizations, different types of industries, how hard work it is. They mentioned how they were presenting to the board at the end. And one thing I would potentially recommend that you have in your mindset, some of the best MBAs in the world are very much classroom-based, theoretical MBA programs. But what I would say is, if you're looking for that purely academic, theoretical-based MBA program, I'm not sure that the Manchester MBA is the best one available. I think what the guys have done so far is to give you an insight into what a truly practical MBA looks like. You know, Kathy even mentioned there in terms of in the current role that she's in, how that consultancy project at Talk helped her in her interview. So that's, you know, real tangible things that she could take from the MBA program. And the other thing that Kathy mentioned was, you know, she had a typical finance background. She wanted exposure to different organizations. And what I'm going to ask you now, Matthias, is what did your class look like? Was it full of people with just finance experience? Did everyone look the same, come from the same industries? Can you give maybe an insight, you know, because of course, some business schools will focus on a couple of sectors. We've prided ourselves for years in terms of we want to recruit a diverse class. So that's what we say. And maybe Matthias, you'll be able to either show that or say, no, actually, you don't do it. Hang on, you're still on mute.
Sorry. Of course we were. I mean, if I recall correctly, my class, I think we were 113 classmates, 32 nationalities. I know that Latins, like 5 or 6 countries, we were 23. I know that we had a lot of like 10 people from China, another 4 from Japan, Korea, everywhere, to be honest, like nationality wise. And that of course talks about culture, and I think that that's a very good point as well. And in order to connect it with the consulting project, a lot about what the MBAs are supposed to be is about soft skills and teamwork. And of course you can have that theoretically in classes, and I guess a lot of them do, and everyone has some kind of project, but this level of project where you're with this level of exposure and this level of responsibility upon you really force you to work on the teamwork and understanding different cultures. So I guess that is something that alongside the project is crucial, and it's very important to highlight. Regarding then going back to diversity into different industries, so I remember I come from the healthcare industry, and I used to be like the very healthcare vocal one, and I think we're less than 10 people in like coming from healthcare. So I know that for sure there were a lot of some people from consulting, people from finance, people from everywhere. Like we even had like 2 or 3 from as Meredith is or was coming from charities, so NGOs. So it was super diverse in all aspects and respect. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much. And so Matthias there said, I think 113 people in his class. I mentioned 112 in the current class. Maybe just again, just a quick insight to you all. So we look to recruit basically about 105, 110 students onto our MBA program. We think one of the benefits of that is that you do get to work with everyone who's on the program. You do get to know your classmates, as opposed to maybe going into an MBA program with maybe, you know, 400, 500, 600 students. Ritwick, you mentioned that I think it was on your commercial business consultancy that you traveled to Europe. And I'm going to be asking each one of you on this one, so you don't have to go too in depth. But you know, people often come onto MBA programs. You know, they choose the business school, the country where they want to study, but they don't necessarily just want to stay, whether they come to the UK or whether they go to the US or whether they go to Germany. They don't want to just stay in that country whilst they're on their MBA program. They want additional exposure or international exposure. So we'll start with Ritwick. We'll go Ritwick, Meredith, Kathy, Matthias. What was the international exposure that you got on the program? Of course, and I'm thinking there from any of the consultancies that you care to mention, and also one thing that we haven't yet touched on is Alliance Manchester Business School's global presence in, you know, we've got our executive MBA campuses in Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai, and Sao Paulo. maybe some of you did visit those campuses. So yes, over to you firstly, Ritwick.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, for my commercial business project, I was able to convince the client to allow us to travel to Germany to gather some more insights on the project that we're working on. Typically, commercial business projects are restricted to the UK region, depending on the budget of the client. But yeah, because it was Cisco, so they were happy with spending more money. And that was a really interesting opportunity because of the different sort of culture in Germany and interacting with people from the industry, from the autonomous vehicle industry or the car industry in general in Germany, which has a very strong presence in that industry. So of course, the cultural differences, the difference of thinking, and because I was definitely not from a car industry with the car industry background, it also offered me a really good perspective or insight into how that industry thinks. And Germany was probably a best place to gain that sort of an experience. And apart from this, of course, there's the international business project. So we were lucky because we managed to do our traveling for this project just before the pandemic hit. And our team of 6 people, we split into 3 groups, and one group traveled to the US, one group traveled to the Europe, and one group traveled to India to gather the different insights on the matter. So I believe international business project is another part of the whole program, which gives you really good opportunity to go to different markets, learn about different businesses or how the people from different cultural backgrounds think, or how the economy works in different geographical regions in the world.
Excellent.
That's it.
Yeah. And Meredith, what countries, cities did you get exposure to whilst on the MBA?
Yeah, I should have mentioned this when you asked your first question, because this was also one of the deciding factors for me, along with Kathy's point of like a really strong university community. I did a few international electives. So I participated in the Shanghai study tour, where there were a group of about 30 of us there for a week. And then we all took some time to travel up to Beijing after, which was awesome. I also did an international business elective in Hong Kong, and then went to South Korea just for my own individual travel after. But that semester is a little bit looser in terms of electives. So it does give you a chance to do a little bit of travel around wherever you take an international elective, which is a great perk. And then during my international business project, my team went to the US for 4 weeks. So we were in Boston, New York, Philadelphia. 2 of my teammates went to Utah. And then we went to like 4 or 5 different cities in Texas, meeting with entrepreneurs at entrepreneurship centers. So we did quite a bit of international travel, and it definitely did add a lot to the program.
Excellent. Kathy, same question for you.
I'm laughing because we didn't get to go anywhere.
Oh.
But it was COVID. It was COVID. So I'm gonna answer a slightly different question. So I'm gonna feed into the social element of the course, if you'll let me, Chris. So pre-COVID, we got a very nice Christmas break, and basically I went off to Italy, but there was another group that went to Germany and different areas around Europe. So we did the social travel. So kind of, back in kind of bits of backpacking and hostels and stuff with classmates. So not strictly on the course, but very much still the opportunity to explore while you're in Manchester, because I mean, I'm sure you'll all be aware, Manchester Airport, super close to the campus, super close to where you'll be living, and yeah, opens up everywhere.
I wasn't expecting that, but I think it is a great point, and I often hear from students who say, yes, they've had a great experience on the program, but one of the things they also valued was the opportunity to travel so much independently, which, as you say, it's not to do with the program. That's more to do with geography. So again, it's not a case of just Manchester. That's something I think anyone who's looking at European business schools can truly benefit from. I'm hoping Matthias wasn't caught up in the COVID thing.
No. I was also of the 2020. So before, I mean, we were caught up in the final presentation. That's only. But so regarding travels, yeah, I did a lot. I mean, on Katie's point, so in the first Christmas, 10 or 12 of our friends, we went to a trip that we went to Turkey, Egypt, Lebanon, and Israel. Okay, outside of the scope of the MBA, but then within the MBA as well. So as Meredith was saying as well, like international business elective, I went to Japan for an elective, and then we did some traveling. And then also I did an internship in Argentina. I know other people who also did internship abroad. So I know people who did internship in Brazil, other people who did internship in Chile, other ones did internship in Germany. So that's another option that happens in the middle of MBA if you're doing an 18-month program. And finally, for the international business consulting project, personally I went to the US, but also part of my team went to Germany and I think, I don't remember which one, but some of the Nordic, Denmark, I think, countries. So yeah, that's based on, depending on where your project is focused on the research.
Okay, excellent. And Kathy, I'm going to go back to you on this one, just because something you mentioned earlier about, you had a finance background when you came into the MBA. Of course, all MBA programs across the world attract students from a finance background. And one of the questions we're often asked is, do you do an MBA in finance? And often we'll go back and say, well, an MBA should be a general management qualification. But to go on Meredith's points earlier about electives, how did you go about, Kathy, in terms of selecting your electives? Did you want to continue to fully focus on finance, or did you want to broaden your knowledge with topics that you may not necessarily have had the experience in? So maybe any insight into how you selected your electives?
Yeah, definitely. So I was all about broadening skills and learning new things, and the electives give you that option because you're able to choose them. So I did the 15-month program, so that worked, Meredith, with the international tours that the other guys have spoken about. That's on the 18-month program. But the 15-month program very much worked for me. Another reason why it's great that there is that flexibility there. But the electives, I just chose essentially what I was interested in, and also what kind of worked for the time, because you end up doing your electives at the same time as the other study requirements. So kind of what worked from all angles. So I did ones around kind of human resources, digital marketing, big data, and yeah, it's just essentially things that I were interested in. There's definitely a few other kind of popular electives that people really enjoyed. So one around kind of negotiation skills, I know is usually quite a popular one. Yeah, got some nods. So yeah, so it's just that freedom of either building something you've learned on in the core academic program, or just, I've always wondered, this is kind of my approach, was I've always kind of wondered about digital marketing. Let's go and learn a bit more.
Okay, that's great. And just interesting, you mentioned there about the 15-month program, and Ritwick, Meredith, Matthias, did all three of you do the 18-month? Yes. So quick insight to the audience there. So we have 12, 15, 18-month option. In the current class, 60% are doing the 18-month program, 30% are doing the 15-month, and 10% are doing the 12-month. Just for your info. I think we've spoken about part of the business school, part of the program, consultancy project, some of the electives, the international exposure, what the class looks like. I think now we're going to focus maybe more on post MBA. And Meredith, I'm going to go to you on this one, just because you said before we got started that you were actually having a coffee with the head of our career service. So I'm interested, and we'll start with you, and hopefully we'll have time for the other guys as well. How did you work with our postgraduate career service? Was it a close relationship? She had a standoff relationship? Anything? Any tips there for the audience?
I'm really sorry, Chris. Oh, great, it's ended. It was just an alarm test. I didn't hear the end of your question there, but I think it was mostly around how we worked with the careers team. And I worked quite closely with the careers team because when I came onto the MBA, I had no idea what I wanted to do after. So I actually did an internship with American Express and then worked in American Express's customer services strategy team for a year before I transitioned into my current role. And the careers team was really helpful in terms of helping me understand what opportunities did exist for me, introducing me to different alumni so that I could learn a bit more about what they did and understand if that could potentially be the way that I wanted to go, but also give me insights into the company culture of the people who often recruit from University of Manchester. So for instance, they helped me understand that Amex was very people focused and I actually didn't need a finance background, whereas I may not have considered that as an option if it weren't for the team. So they run a lot of sessions that engage you with alumni and help you understand what their experience is. They also do like mock interview testing for you. They'll help you with applications and pulling together your CV at the very beginning of the program. But also I would just say they genuinely care about the outcomes that you have from the program. So they're much more involved in the MBA than I had initially pictured a careers team being. Like they'll be some of the people that you get to know the most if you choose to come and study at Manchester. And like I said, they do genuinely care. So they're interested in kind of how you're getting on after you've initially accepted that offer. And want to make sure that you have a really successful career off the back of the MBA.
Excellent. And then I think any one of the three of you can jump in here if it's applicable. So Meredith there has given a great example about American Express, who would be regarded as one of our clients or one of the career services clients. So you know, great that Meredith did her internship at American Express. We've got a number of students from last year's class who've just finished their internships at American Express. Did any of the three of you secure internships independently of the careers team by any chance? Now they've all said no, which is a great answer actually, because that shows we're doing some tremendous work in our careers team, and I think that is evidence there to the audience of the opportunities available. So Matthias, I'm going to go over to you on this one then. In terms of your role post MBA. How did you secure that role then? What was your strategy? How did it all come about?
No, in my case, it was totally LinkedIn. I mean, actually, it was a very difficult time because, of course, we finished in April 2020. So in the middle of the pandemic, it took me around 4 months because I had the right to work here because of my Italian passport. That was easier for me than for other people, for sure. But in my case, it was just a LinkedIn easy apply. I mean, I applied to 160, so it's not like I didn't do anything. But the one that pulled through was the easy apply, 1 minute LinkedIn application.
And also, I think Ritwick, if I remember correctly, and I'm not 100% sure I've got this right, so let's hope I do. Were you a vice president of our banking and finance club when you were on the MBA?
Yeah, that's right.
You were, yes. So okay, so my memory is half decent then. Any insight into the clubs for the audience then, please?
Yeah, of course. So because of the location of the school, that is UK, there's a lot more opportunities in the financial services area that are available to the graduates. So there's a big curiosity, or you can say a lot of my classmates wanted to learn about the financial services or how these markets work as well, because many of them, as Matthias covered prior, were not from the financial services background. So the Banking and Finance Club also tried to organize sessions to educate the interested classmates on these sort of matters like financial, how does the financial services industry work, how does the financial markets work, and these sort of things. And apart from these, we also try to organize networking events with fintechs in and around Manchester mostly. And of course, there were some consolidated or centralized effort in association with the PCS team and the consulting club as well to organize bigger networking events, which span different clubs in the school. And these were on a bigger scale and usually were organized in London. So these were, you can say, sort of on a high level how the Banking and Finance Club operated.
Excellent. And of course, we've got a number of other different clubs on our MBA. From the Energy Club, I think there's something on entrepreneurship. So plenty for all of our students to get involved in. Now we're coming to the end, so I think we've got about 4 minutes left. What's going to happen then is Kathy, Ritwick, Matthias, and Meredith are going to leave, but myself, my colleagues Anthony Thomas and Katerina Clark are going to stay on to answer any other questions. But as a final question, this is going to go to all 4 of you. We'll go Kathy, Matthias, Meredith, and Ritwick. And it's quite an open-ended question. What would be your best advice to current MBA applicants or people who are prospective MBA students who are still thinking of what type of school, what type of program to select, etc.?
Hard one. I think when you're thinking about the school, think about where you're going to live, because yes, it is all about the school, but also as I said before, you want to make a life and make friendships and enjoy your time here as well. It's not just about the program, it's about this great amazing experience that you're about to undergo, and you want to get the most out of it, both academically and personally. So think about where you're going to live, what that might actually look like, all the other kind of costs of going out for a meal and going out and socializing and that kind of thing as well. And I think just put everything into your applications. So there's a lot to, I remember there being quite a few different essays and stuff you have to write. Just be honest and open up and put that effort in, and it'll definitely be rewarded.
Right, Matthias.
Wow, I don't know what to say. I mean, I think the where you live in, it's also important. I mean, for me, the MBA was 18 months, almost 2 years. And I took it as like the last time that I had for like a time for myself. So of course, it's not just about the academic side of it. And for me also that I mean, knowing that Manchester was a city and not just like a town, that was important for me because I wanted to explore that part as well. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I wanted to comment that is not really regarding application states, more like by the time that you enter your program, is that the MBA really is, it can be anything that you want it to be, and it just needs you to get really involved with it and like explore the different competition, the different interest groups that they are. Try to network as soon as possible. They are going to tell you that from the first day, but you're not going to do it because that's how we are. But that's key to make your experience, to take the most out of the experience, and really use that as a time to discover what you want to do. I mean, it's the moment to do like a big change in your career. Maybe you're going to go into a new career path, and that's a great time. I mean, enjoy it. That's it.
I think I was next. I mean, everybody's going to be different, right? Like what my experience was would be different from the next person's, but like Chris said, like if you're looking for a purely academic experience, then this probably isn't the best program for you, just because you won't be doing what all of your peers are doing. Yes, the classes are important, but there are so many extracurricular opportunities. Matthias mentioned the case studies. I participated, or in the competitions, I participated in a bunch of like ideas competitions where we were trying to come up with a business loved that. Participated in a venture capital competition that was one of the highlights of the program for me. So there are so many opportunities to participate in extracurriculars, and if that's something that you're interested in making the most of, then I think you'll really enjoy Manchester. You can probably tell from a lot of our responses that we all had a lot of fun here. So that's a big piece, is being able to like have the flexibility in addition to the academics to travel to and to make the most of those opportunities as they arise.
Final word to you, Ritwick.
Yeah, I'll quickly say that at this stage of the process, I would say you should focus on the exit strategy, because at the end of the day, the MBA is a very big investment and you need to get some return on it. So think about how you want to leverage the MBA, and unless you have a clear thought or clear action points or what you want to do, you have clarity, I think you should not do the MBA if you don't have that clarity. So exit strategy is very important from my perspective.
Joe, great point that, because it's actually something that our careers team say when they give their initial presentation, that their focus is your exit strategy. Yes, of course, they want you to have a great experience on the Manchester MBA, etc. But their focus is what's going to happen to you after you graduate from the MBA program. And I think maybe having that sort of attitude is maybe a testament as to why that team was ranked as one of the top 20 best MBA careers teams in the world in the recent Financial Times MBA rankings. So that was a nice way to end it there, Ritwick. Thank you. Kathy, Ritwick, Meredith, Matthias, thank you so much for giving us your time. I think you've shared some invaluable insights there with the audience. We will send a recording of this to the audience. So thank you, and you are free now to leave.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Bye-bye.
Thanks. And then for
Bye.
the rest of the audience, as I said, myself and my colleagues Anthony and also Ekaterina will be hanging around now. We'll get to the Q&A stage. So any of you who want to leave, by all means do so. Those of you who want to stay and ask questions, please do so, and we will get to each question. Ant, I think I'm going to start. I'll start from the top, I think.
Makes sense.
So we had a question from Vibhav, who asked about the projects and whether they were a core part of the MBA curriculum. The answer to that is yes, absolutely, they are a core part. Every student who comes onto the Manchester MBA will undertake 4 projects in total, 3 of which will be live consultancy ones with real companies, the not-for-profit consultancy, the commercial business consultancy, and the international business consultancy. The one that's not live is our mergers and acquisitions project. The reason that's not live is because we don't have millions and millions of pounds to give to our students to acquire organisations. But interesting on the mergers and acquisitions project, and I know we didn't get a chance to touch on that, but often our students will say that's one of the toughest elements of the programme, but also very rewarding as well. Over to you, Ant.
Okay, great. I was just wondering if I could put this one to you, Chris. It says, what edge does an MBA from Manchester give over one from an American school? That's from Lineage. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, happy to answer that. So I think although I'd like to say it's just Manchester, it would be disingenuous of me to just answer this purely to do with Manchester, and I will include all my European colleagues from across the UK, Italy, Spain, etc. into this answer. If you go to a UK or European school, you're going to get more of a globally focused curriculum. You're going to have a more globally or diverse cohort as well. If you think about the US, it is at the moment it's still the biggest economy in the world. So the curriculum is very, very US focused. 70% of the students will also generally be from the US. Whereas for us and other European schools, what you tend to see is about 10 to 20% of that class being domestic-based students, with 80% being international. In the US, very, very different. So I think you're going to have much more of a global outlook if you join a European school, and of course, does include Manchester.
Cool. We've got another question from Vapav. He's asking about the Gmat averages that we have for the class. Apart from Gmat, what other factors do we take into consideration? Given that you're on the admissions committee, I think you're maybe the perfect person to answer this one as well.
Yeah, so the average Gmat it ranges from about 640 to 660 on any given year. What I would say is, because of the way our program is structured, the Gmat is important, but it's certainly not the be all and end all for us. If you think about, going back to US schools, I've got many friends who work at US schools, and, the Gmat is almost number one for a number of schools, US schools, because if you don't hit a specific number, then they won't look at your application. We don't work like that at Manchester, and I know many colleagues from other schools don't operate like that as well. But what we do focus on at Manchester is your professional experience. Your professional experience is key. And the reason it's key is because of the way our program is structured, because of those consultancy projects. We heard one of the guys earlier speaking about how they were presenting to the board at Cisco on their commercial business consultancy. So that project is done within the first 6 months of the MBA. So that wasn't his international business consultancy, which is done at the end. So we have to look at applicants and think, if they're working with a client such as Cisco or a BMW or an American Express, how are they going to be able to deal with presenting and delivering reports to people in such senior positions? And that comes with professional experience or quality professional experience, not always to do with the number, it's more to do with the quality. And a Gmat score doesn't really give you that. Gmat score doesn't give us confidence of you flying to Europe, delivering a presentation to the board at Cisco. What you've previously done before coming onto the MBA will give us more confidence. So I would say for us, your professional experience is the key thing.
Okay, excellent. Question from Mohit saying he's coming from a consulting background. I'm wondering how easy or difficult it is to find jobs in consulting in the UK. He's wanting to pivot into strategy consulting, and he's currently working in technology consulting.
Yeah, so interestingly, when I started in this industry, the top two sectors were consulting and financial services in terms of what students would go to post MBA. Now, of course, you've got tech in that. And what's interesting with the Manchester MBA, when I look at post-industry sectors, is how much change there is between 1, 2, and 3. So I think financial services was number one 2 years ago. I think consultancy was number 1 last year. 3 years ago, technology was number 1, and it does change and change. For us, I think 23% is what we have with consultancy at the moment. Our actual aspiration is always to have no more than 20% going into one industry sector. And the reason for that is because, we do pride ourselves on being focused on general management, on diversity, on recruiting students from different backgrounds, but also wanting students to go to a range of backgrounds as well. So wanting to go into consultancy is something that's common, something our careers team are very adept at dealing and working with. So it's something, you know, as Anthony said, I am one of the members of the admissions committee. Often I will see people wanting to go into the consultancy sector. So certainly realistic. You know, you heard Kathy mention she works for a private equity firm. Now that, on the other hand, is something that is, you know, much more difficult to get into immediately post MBA. Of course, it's attractive to MBA applicants, MBA students, but that's an industry that doesn't have a huge history, or, well, it's not a huge industry in itself, but it also doesn't have the legacy of having employers who are going into business schools specifically looking for MBA students, as is the case with the consultancy sector, the financial services sector, the tech sector, the healthcare sector. You've got a range of companies who are specifically looking for MBAs year in, year out. Doesn't always work like that on private equity, but I think it was interesting to hear Kathy's experience there, because she did get into what is, I regard, I'd go as far to say, the toughest sector post MBA.
Yeah, so switching to a really important topic now, about funding. So thanks for these questions, Nana and Siddhant. We were just asking about scholarships and how that works. Do you want to touch upon that a little bit?
Yeah, with regards to scholarships, and do you know what, whilst I'm answering this, if you can sort of dismiss some of the questions that have already been asked.
Yeah, that's a good idea. No problem.
So we heard Matthias also mention scholarships. He was awarded a scholarship on the MBA program. We offer scholarships that range from 10% to 50% of the fees on our MBA program. They're all merit based. All people who we decide to make an offer to can be considered for a scholarship. About a third of our students are fortunate enough to receive a scholarship. Before they embark on the MBA. What I would say there is, you know, Anthony, myself, Ekaterina, who's also in the background here, you know, we'd be happy to have any one-on-one Zoom consultations where if you sent a copy of your CV to us, we could take a look. We could, you know, give informal feedback in terms of, you know, whether we think a scholarship is something that's realistic or not on the program. Hang on, are you on mute, Ant? Yes. Ant? He's on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, we do have quite a few questions about Gmat, which is not to be unexpected. In terms of the whether or not it's required, do you want to say anything around that?
So yes, the Gmat is required. So I'll start going down the questions now. How has the new visa laws impacted the applicant pool this year? Interesting question, that, Adash, because great news for the UK education sector about the new visa regulations. Is it great news for us on the Manchester MBA? It's certainly not bad news. And the reason why I'm being a bit ambivalent in terms of answering this question is because we've always been very successful with students staying in the UK after graduation. You had three international students on that call, on that Zoom earlier, two of which have stayed in the UK one of which immediately stayed in the UK and then moved to Berlin. So about 45 to 55% of our students have always stayed in the UK post-graduation. Now that is a significant number. It's a number that not many UK business schools are able to compete with, because I've been on panels in different countries around the world in the past where I share that statistic, and I sometimes feel a bit bad on the person to my left and right, because I know they can't share similar statistics. With that being said, I think the new visa regulations will certainly help the industry, will certainly help a number of business schools, will certainly help a number of MBA applicants. Is it going to have a huge difference for us? I'm not sure, because we like to have about 50% to stay in the UK. We like to have 25% of our students who go back to their home countries, and the other 25% are maybe more globally have more of a global mindset, where they're thinking, I don't want to stay in the UK, I don't want to go back to my home country, I want to take advantage of other global opportunities around the world. So that's our perfect split, if you will, 50%, 25, 25. So we're already achieving that. So there's the answer to that question. There's a question here as well I'm seeing about international electives study tours. Will they resume for the next intake? Vivek, we actually had the current full-time MBA class in Dubai. They were in Dubai about 3 weeks ago, actually, doing their study tour there. We have classes going on out in our Dubai campus this minute, actually. So some of our there's a lot of our international activities that are already taking place. I think the one area that is going to be trickier for is China, in terms of securing the visas for academics and students to go into China. With regards to Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, Sao Paulo, yes, some of that is already going ahead, and I see that continuing or being ramped up in the over the coming months. The only question mark I think we still have, which is not to do with the Manchester MBA, it's to do with the world, is how easy is it going to be to get in and out of China.
Your question about fees and whether or not they differ depending on which program length you do. Just to confirm that they don't. So it's the same fee level regardless of which program duration you choose to do. Thanks for that question, Noel.
I'm seeing a question as well on the exchange program. So we didn't actually touch on the international exchange during the panel. So Nana, in answer to that, yes, so we're one of a number of schools who will have an international exchange program on their MBA. It's something I think that's quite traditional. A number of schools have it. So about 30% of our students would go on an international exchange with another business school. That number has decreased over recent years. And I think one of the reasons it has decreased is because about 4, maybe 5 years ago, we introduced the option, we introduced these study tours in Dubai and Shanghai, where we have, fantastic connections. But also we introduced the option to take electives with our executive MBA students in different parts of the world. And that was very attractive to our full-time MBA students. We heard Meredith say that she did something in Shanghai and also in Hong Kong, I think she said. Because, if let's say you're one of those 25% who maybe don't want to stay in the UK, maybe don't want to go back to their home countries, and let's say you're interested in working in Asia, then you would say it would make sense to potentially take a few electives in Singapore, Hong Kong, China with our executive MBA students, because your network is going to grow then in those territories. But not only grow, they're going to grow with very, very senior executives, and they can be invaluable contacts. So I think that's one of the reasons why why we see less students now going on the exchange, because we've offered alternative and potentially more professionally attractive options to our students. Now, the reason I said professionally attractive there is because, again, you heard from the guys earlier, they spoke about the outside of the MBA, the personal side, the fun side. And I would say that's something to consider with an international exchange, because, yes, growing your connections in Singapore and Hong Kong can become invaluable, and, professionally could work out very well for you. But then again, going to do an exchange program in LA or in Melbourne, Australia, can be attractive in different ways. Lying on the beach in LA or Melbourne is not to be scoffed at. So from a personal point of view, an exchange can offer a wide range of benefits as well. And it's up to you to decide between that balance between professional and personal.
Excellent. I think most of the questions have been answered now. Thank you very much for everyone's questions. Maybe I can just start by kind of wrapping up a few things in terms of next steps.
Sorry, Hans, I'm just seeing that I've just seen a few more come up on my.
Oh, okay, great, no worries.
Whilst they've got our attention,
okay.
So Bhargavi, you've asked, do we accept GRE? Yes, we do. More than happy to consider a GRE score. Zian is asking, what are the top qualities you look to see from candidates? Zian, I think I've sort of touched on that one earlier, which is about your professional experience. Yes, there's things like academic background, your references, the quality of your application, etc. But I think professional experience is the key one for us at Manchester. And the reason, to reiterate, the reason for that is because the way our program is structured, with so much work outside of the classroom on our MBA. Sarah is asking, does application round have an effect on percentage of scholarships offered? Yes, I think yes is the simple answer, and I'll explain why now. So think about the people who applied for round one. The scholarship pot started at 100%. After round one, it starts to reduce. After round two, it reduces and reduces. I wrote an article, I think it was on the Economist MBA site recently, where I said, in terms of offering advice to people, and it was, you should try to apply as soon as you can for an MBA program. Again, speak to people like Anthony and myself. We're more than happy to help and to encourage you when possible to submit an application, because the amount of applications I see towards the end of the admission cycle, where, some people are not offered places because we don't have the places to offer. That happened for the current class, but also there's some people who were offered places, and this happens every year, where if they would have applied 3, 4, 5 months earlier, they probably would have got scholarship. But because they've applied so late, we just literally don't have those scholarship funds to offer candidates. I'm seeing a question here as well from Mari on 12 months. Let me try and scan this. So, okay, I think I've got the gist of that question. So the 12-month program is an interesting one. We started offering it because the majority of European business schools offer a 12-month MBA. We've not offered a 12-month. Historically, we didn't offer a 12-month or a 15-month. We've always offered an 18-month. So the 12-month, the 15 and 18 month, there's very, very little difference. In fact, the only difference is an international exchange is not a viable option on the 15-month program. It physically cannot be done. Apart from that, there's not many differences between 15 and 18. And we often see candidates, struggle to choose and often either move from 15 to 18 or from 18 down to 15 whilst they're on the program. The 12-month is different. The 12-month, I think, is much better suited for those individuals who, let's say, don't need an internship. All students on the panel earlier, they all undertook an internship. About 83% of our students, it ranges between 78 to 85% on any given year, undertake an internship on our MBA program. And if you're not looking for an internship, then absolutely consider the 12-month. If you are looking for an internship, or if you are looking to go into what I would class an MBA structured hiring program, so that would be, so our biggest client at the moment is Amazon. If you're looking to go to a structured hiring program like that, I'm not sure the 12-month is the best one. I think 15, 18 makes more sense. Anthony mentioned earlier, the fees are the same on 12, 15 and 18. The 12-month works very well for, let's say, some of our more mature candidates. I saw someone earlier say they had about 20 years of professional experience, but they still wanted to do an MBA. 12-month program makes complete sense for someone with that level of experience, arguably to someone with 10, 15 years as well. So if you know exactly what you want to do, you don't need an internship, you don't need to go into a structured MBA hiring program with an American Express or an Amazon, then yeah, the 12 months can work very well. If you are looking for those things that I've mentioned, though, again, I recommend getting in contact with Anthony or myself. On that note about Amazon, I did notice someone was speaking about tech, fintech. I mentioned earlier as well, tech over the last 5 years has broken in, and it's now not top 2 industry sector with financial services and consultancy. It's a top 3 industry in terms of tech, financial services and consultancy. I think those who have got aspirations to work for a technology firm, you're going to find plenty of options on the Manchester MBA. As I said, our #1 client now is Amazon. Fintech is a huge growing sector. We see more and more opportunities coming every year into the fintech sector. So again, that's not something that is that's something that sounds a realistic aspiration on the face of it. Do we have any more questions, Ant? I've not opened the chat box. I've only looked at the Q&A. No, I do see there's questions on the chat. Vivek,
I think they've kind of answered. I know Matthias actually was kind enough to type a response to someone. So yeah, okay. I think, and we can also obviously pick up any questions offline that we might have missed for whatever reason.
Just on Vivek's question there, in terms of changing duration. Yes, you can change duration within 6 months of starting the program. But you can only change 1 level up or 1 level down. You cannot move from the 12-month program to the 18-month. You can move from the 12 to the 15. You can move from 15 to 18. You can move from 18 to 15. You can move from 15 to 12. But you can't make a 18 to 12 or 12 to 15. Ielts Toefl by Mowat. How important is the IELTS? It is, well, yes, it is important. I mean, we often, assess the English when we interview our candidates, but an IELTS TOEFL is needed to secure a visa as well. So yes, you're coming from India, so yeah, you would need it. And the biggest reason you need it is to secure your visa, basically. I'm sure was it, who asked that question? Moet. I'm sure Moet, if I was to be the one who was fortunate to interview you maybe in a couple of months' time, I'm sure your English would be impeccable. With that being said, you'd still need the Ielts and TOEFL. I think, have we got everything there? It's difficult to look at the chat. Yeah, I think so. Do you want to? You can. I think we can wrap up now, Ant. So you can.
Yeah. Thank you for all those questions, guys. Like I said, it's been a really great session. I'll thank our alumni on your behalf. Thank you, Chris, for joining as well.
I'm just writing my email address here.
Yeah,
for
excellent.
The guys who are left, I know they will all have your email address. And
yeah,
so
absolutely.
my email address, I've just noted it down. By all means, drop me an email. Happy to help in any way I can over the next week or two.
Fantastic. Yeah, just in terms of the next steps and dates that people might want to just look out for, our second deadline for the Full-time MBA 2022 is coming up on the 1st of November. So that's round 2. And of course, if you do want to have a profile reviewed, as Chris said, you're more than welcome to drop us a note, drop us an email, and we're more than happy to kind of have a one-to-one call after today's session. Get to know you better, essentially. We've got a couple of events coming up as well that probably worth just flagging with you. So yeah, it's different to today's session. We've covered alumni. The next one will be like an academic focus, so you can have a sense of what a sample lecture might be like. So we've got Malcolm Smith, who's actually going to be delivering a session on the 17th of November. So I think that's going live on the website today, actually. So yeah, if not, we'll definitely be emailing everyone invites to that session soon. And then finally, before we finish for our Christmas break, which is hard to believe that's around the corner, yeah, we're going to have our admissions director on a Q&A with Chris, I think. The format is yet to be finalized. We're just also finalizing the date at the moment. So yeah, that's going to be sometime in December. So again, that's a really great opportunity for you to ask those detailed admissions questions. Obviously today is very much like information gathering stage going forwards over the next few months. So hopefully that will be really relevant to everyone. So yeah, I don't think we've got any final questions right now. So yeah, thank you everyone for your time, and we'll be in touch. Bye for now.